"Don't waste money on me," she cried. The poor farmer still gave his last coin to save her. Hassan was a poor farmer who lived in a small, dusty village, surrounded by endless fields. Every morning he would wake before sunrise, brush the sleep from his eyes, and step outside into the cold air. The rooster's crow would echo through the village as the first signs of light began to touch the tops of the trees. Hassan's life was not easy. His clothes were old and worn, and the lines on his face told stories of hard work, long days, and little rest. But he never complained. He believed that if he worked honestly, even the smallest reward would be enough to keep his heart calm and his spirit content. On this particular morning, Hassan was walking toward his field, carrying his simple tools in his hands. The earth smelled fresh after the last night's rain, and tiny droplets of water glistened on the leaves. He had a small piece of land, just enough to grow vegetables for himself and to sell a little in the market. Life was simple, and he took pride in what he had, even if it was very little. As he walked along the narrow dirt path that led to his field, he heard a faint sound. At first he thought it was the wind or perhaps a bird, but the sound grew louder and it became clear that it was a human voice, weak and trembling. Hassan stopped and listened carefully. The voice was crying, soft and full of pain. His heart tightened. He knew that sound meant someone was in trouble. Following the cries, he moved toward a bend in the path where the village road met the fields. There, he saw her. A young woman was sitting on the edge of the road, her face pale and streaked with tears. Her clothes were torn and her hair fell in messy strands over her shoulders. She looked exhausted, weak, and hungry. Hassan felt a sudden rush of concern. He had never seen her before in the village. He stepped closer, careful not to startle her, and said gently, "Are you all right? Can I help you?" The young woman lifted her head slowly, her eyes wide with fear and confusion. She shook her head, her voice barely above a whisper. "No, I'm fine." "Please don't waste your money on me," she said, her hands trembling as she tried to push him away. Hassan frowned slightly, confused by her words. How could she think that anyone would consider money more important than her safety? Hassan sat down a little distance from her, keeping his distance so she would feel safe. He noticed that she was shivering, and he could see that her lips were dry and cracked from thirst. His heart ached. Without a second thought, he reached into his pocket and pulled out the few coins he had left. His life was not rich, and every coin was hard-earned, but the sight of her suffering made him forget his own struggles for a moment. "Here," he said softly, holding out a small coin. "Buy something to eat, just a little. You need it more than I do right now." The young woman looked at the coin with disbelief. Her eyes widened and she shook her head again. "No, I can't take this. I don't want to trouble you. You have worked so hard for this. Please keep it for yourself." Her voice was filled with both gratitude and shame. Hassan smiled gently, trying to ease her worries. "It's no trouble at all," he said. "I have very little, yes, but helping someone in need is more important than my hunger today. Don't worry about me, you need to eat." She hesitated, then finally took the coin. Her hands were so weak that she almost dropped it. She looked down at it as if it were something precious, and Hassan could see tears forming in her eyes. For a moment, she could not speak. Hassan did not rush her. He waited quietly, giving her the time to gather herself. Finally, she whispered, "Thank you, I don't know what to say." "You don't need to say anything," Hassan replied. "Just eat something and rest. That's enough for me." Hassan watched as she slowly stood up and walked toward the village shop. Her movements were shaky, but she held onto the coin tightly. He followed at a short distance, keeping an eye on her to make sure she would not fall or be harmed. The shopkeeper, an older man with kind eyes, greeted her with surprise as she approached. Hassan handed the coin to the shopkeeper and asked him to give the young woman some bread and water. The shopkeeper hesitated. "She doesn't know how to pay, Hassan," he said quietly. "Then I will pay for her," Hassan said simply. "She needs it more than I do." The shopkeeper nodded. understanding the depth of Hassan's kindness. He handed the food to the young woman, who took it carefully and held it as if it were the most valuable thing she had ever received. Hassan smiled to himself. It was a small gesture, a simple act of giving, but to her, it meant the world. As she ate, Hassan sat a little distance away and watched. He noticed the way her hands trembled as she held the bread, the way her eyes softened as she tasted the food. He felt a quiet satisfaction in his heart. Even though he had so little, giving what he could to help someone else made him feel rich in a way that money could never buy. After a few minutes, the young woman looked up at him again, her eyes meeting his. I don't know who you are," she said, her voice still weak. "But you are very kind. I have never met anyone like you." Hassan shrugged lightly, a small smile on his lips. "I am just a farmer," he said. "I work hard and I try to do what is right, that's all." "Helping you is the right thing to do." She nodded slowly, as if trying to understand his words. There was a pause, a quiet moment where the sounds of the village surrounded them, the rustling leaves, the distant crow of a rooster, the soft chatter of people beginning their day. In that moment, it felt like nothing else existed except the two of them and the simple act of kindness that had passed between them. The young woman, who still did not know Hassan's name, finally spoke again. I ran away," she admitted, her voice barely audible. "I had nowhere else to go, no one to help me. I didn't know what to do." Hassan listened quietly. He did not interrupt, did not judge. He could see the fear and loneliness in her eyes, and his heart ached even more. "It's all right now," he said gently. "You don't have to be alone anymore. I will make sure you are safe today. That is all that matters." For the first time in many days, she allowed herself to relax a little. She sat down on a small patch of grass beside him, holding the food close to her chest. Hassan continued to watch her quietly, making sure she was all right. He knew that his day would be harder without his coins, without his small savings, but none of that mattered. What mattered was that she was alive, that she had something to eat, and that she felt a little safer in the world. The sun climbed higher in the sky, and the village came to life. People walked along the roads, children ran past with laughter, and the farmers in the fields began their work. Yet, for Hassan and the young woman, it felt like the world had slowed down. In the middle of ordinary life, a small act of kindness had created a quiet, sacred moment. Hours passed slowly and the young woman finished the food. She looked at Hassan, a small smile forming on her lips. "I don't know how I can ever thank you," she said softly. You gave me something I never thought I could have. You helped me when no one else would." Hassan shook his head. "You don't need to thank me, just live well. Be kind to others when you can. That is enough." She nodded, tears forming again, but this time they were tears of relief and gratitude. For the first time, she felt that someone truly cared. Someone had seen her pain and had acted without expecting anything in return. Hassan stayed with her until the sun was high, making sure she had a place to rest and that she felt safe. He walked back to his small field afterward, feeling a quiet warmth in his heart. Even though he had given his last coin, he felt richer than he ever had before. It was not wealth or food that made him rich. It was the joy of helping someone in need. And so, in the fields of a small village, a poor farmer named Hassan had met a frightened young woman. He had given her not just food, but hope. And in doing so, he had shown that kindness does not depend on wealth, and that even the smallest heart can have the greatest love. After that day, the young woman, whose name was Amina, slowly began to regain some strength. The food Hassan had given her had filled her stomach, but more than that, it had given her a sense of hope she had not felt in many days. She stayed close to the small village, sitting near the edge of the field where Hassan worked. At first, she was shy and hesitant to speak much. Her eyes wandered nervously, and she often seemed ready to run at the slightest sound. She had lived a life full of fear, and trusting someone was not easy for her. Hassan noticed this but did not push her. He understood that patience was needed more than words. Every morning, he would go to his fields, and every evening he would return, sometimes bringing a little extra food or water. Sometimes he would bring vegetables from his small garden, small things that he had grown with care. Amina never asked for anything. She simply accepted what he offered with quiet gratitude, and every day she felt a little stronger. One morning, Hassan came into the village carrying a small bundle. Amina saw him from a distance and stood quietly, watching him approach. He smiled gently at her and handed her a small cup of water. "Drink this," he said. "It will help you feel better. Today I managed to find a few more coins. We can buy some bread and a little milk for you." Amina's eyes filled with tears. "Hassan," she whispered, "you are giving me so much. I don't deserve this. I am nothing. I have no family, no home. Please don't waste your hard work on me." Hassan shook his head firmly. "You are not nothing," he said. "You are a person, and every person deserves help. I do not have much, but what I have I can share. That is what matters." Amina looked down at the ground, embarrassed and unsure of what to say. She wanted to refuse, but she was also hungry and thirsty. Finally, she nodded silently, accepting the small gift of kindness once again. As the days passed, a small bond began to grow between them. Hassan would talk about his life, telling her simple stories about his childhood in the village, how he had learned to farm from his father, and how he loved the quiet of the fields. Amina listened quietly, sometimes asking questions, sometimes simply nodding. She was beginning to trust him. She felt safe in a way she had not felt in a long time. One afternoon, as the sun hung high in the sky, Amina finally spoke about herself. She took a deep breath, her hands trembling slightly. I ran away from my home," she said softly. "My family, they did not care about me. They wanted me to do things I could not do. I had nowhere to go. I was so afraid. I thought I would be alone forever." Hassan listened carefully without interrupting. He could see the fear in her eyes and the pain hidden behind her words. He wanted to comfort her, but also wanted her to feel safe sharing her story. "You are not alone now," he said gently. "You can stay here. I will make sure no one hurts you. That is all I want." Amina felt a small warmth in her chest. For the first time in many weeks, she felt someone truly cared. She began to relax slightly, her shoulders dropping, her hands no longer trembling so much. "Thank you," she said softly. I never thought anyone would help me. I thought I was completely alone." Hassan smiled at her. "You are never alone if someone is willing to care," he said. "And today I will make sure you eat and rest well. That is all I can do, but it is enough." The next day, Hassan decided to take Amina to the village shop again. He wanted to make sure she had enough to eat and perhaps a little cloth to cover herself properly. Amina walked slowly beside him, her eyes wide as she observed the small village. She had never spent time here before, never known how kind strangers could be. Everything seemed so simple, so peaceful. At the shop, Hassan gave the coins to the shopkeeper and quietly asked him to provide some bread, milk, and a small bundle of vegetables. The shopkeeper handed the items to Amina, who held them carefully, almost afraid they would disappear if she let go. Hassan watched her and felt a sense of relief. He had done his small part to help her survive another day. "Eat slowly," Hassan said, smiling gently. "Do not rush. You need strength." Amina nodded, her hands still shaking. She sat on the side of the road and began to eat. Every bite seemed to restore her, every sip of milk made her feel a little stronger. Hassan sat nearby, quietly observing her, not saying much. He knew that sometimes quiet companionship was more important than words. Days turned into weeks and Amina grew stronger. She was still cautious, still hesitant to trust completely, but she was beginning to feel a little hope. Hassan continued to help her, bringing food, water, and small comforts whenever he could. Sometimes he would tell her stories about the village, about the people he knew, and about his dreams of improving his small farm. Amina listened with interest, sometimes laughing quietly at his simple jokes. She realized that Hassan was not just kind. He was also gentle and patient, and she began to feel a small bond forming between them. One evening after the sun had set, Hassan and Amina sat outside his small home. The stars were shining brightly above, and the cool night air carried the smell of the fields. Amina looked at Hassan, her eyes filled with gratitude. "Hassan," she said softly, "you have helped me more than anyone ever has. I do not know how to repay you. I have nothing to give you, and yet you continue to help me." Hassan shook his head. "You do not need to repay me," he said. "Helping someone in need is its own reward. Seeing you safe and healthy is enough for me." Amina's eyes filled with tears, but this time they were tears of relief and hope. She realized that kindness like Hassan's was rare, and she felt lucky to have met him. For the first time in months, she felt that someone truly cared about her well-being, not for anything she could give them, but simply because it was the right thing to do. As the weeks passed, Amina started to help Hassan in small ways. She would water his plants, sweep his small yard, and sometimes help carry vegetables from the field. Hassan never asked her to, but she wanted to contribute, to show that she cared. He accepted her help with a gentle smile, knowing that she was learning the value of hard work and kindness. One day, as they worked together in the field, Amina looked at Hassan and said, "I want to learn how to grow food like you. Maybe I can help other people someday too." Hassan smiled, pride shining in his eyes. "Of course," he said. "You can learn anything you want. It does not matter where you start. What matters is that you try and help others when you can." From that day, Hassan began teaching Amina the small skills he knew. He showed her how to plant seeds, water them carefully, and care for the soil. Amina listened intently, asking questions and practicing each day. She found comfort in the routine, and her confidence began to grow. Slowly, she started to believe that she could survive on her own one day, and perhaps even help others like Hassan had helped her. Through all of this, Hassan never forced her to speak about her past, never pressured her to share more than she was ready to. He simply offered patience, kindness, and a safe space. And in that space, Amina began to heal. She laughed quietly at his jokes, she helped in small ways, and she began to feel hope for the future. The villagers began to notice the change in her. She walked with a little more confidence, spoke softly to those she met, and seemed to carry herself with a new sense of purpose. But she never forgot Hassan's kindness. Every time she thought of him, she felt gratitude and a desire to pay forward the help she had received. Hassan, meanwhile, continued his simple life. He worked in his fields, sold his vegetables in the market, and quietly helped Amina as he could. He never sought recognition or praise. To him, the act of helping was enough. He knew that life was hard, that everyone faced struggles, but he also knew that small acts of kindness could make a difference, even in the most difficult times. And so, the days passed, simple and quiet, yet filled with meaning. Amina grew stronger and more confident, and Hassan continued to support her in every way he could. Their bond, formed from a single act of selfless generosity, became a quiet force that would shape both their lives in ways neither of them could yet imagine. In the fields of the small village, a poor farmer and a young woman who had lost everything discovered something extraordinary, that even in the simplest lives, the smallest acts of kindness could create hope, trust, and the beginning of a new life. As days turned into weeks, Amina grew stronger, not only in body but in spirit. The quiet kindness of Hassan had begun to fill a space in her heart that had long been empty. She no longer felt the constant fear and loneliness that had haunted her for so long. The warmth of his presence and the safety of his small home gave her hope, a feeling she had thought she would never know again. Hassan, for his part, continued his simple daily life, tending to his small plot of land, caring for the few animals he owned, and preparing modest meals. Yet, in the quiet of the evenings when the work was done, he found himself smiling more than usual. The presence of Amina had brought a gentle light into his life, a reminder that even the smallest gestures could create a ripple of goodness. He never treated her as a burden. Instead, he welcomed her quietly into his life, sharing what little he had without expectation or judgment. One morning, Hassan decided that it was time for Amina to see more of the village. He wanted her to feel that she was not a stranger and that there were people around who could help her if needed. As they walked through the dusty paths, Amina's eyes widened at the bustling life of the small community. Children ran past with laughter, carrying bundles of firewood or small baskets of fruit. Farmers moved to their fields with tools in hand, their faces sun-baked but smiling at familiar neighbors. "This is our village," Hassan said softly. "It is small, but everyone here looks after one another. You will see that you are not alone." Amina walked quietly beside him, clutching a small cloth bag Hassan had given her to carry some vegetables and bread. She noticed the gentle nods of greeting from villagers who recognized Hassan. He waved politely, and the villagers smiled warmly. Amina felt a strange sense of comfort. For the first time, she felt like she belonged somewhere. As they walked, Hassan pointed out different places. The little schoolhouse where children learned to read and write, the small market where villagers sold fresh vegetables and homemade goods, and the temple where people gathered to pray and celebrate festivals. "Everything here is simple," Hassan said, "but it is enough. We help each other, and that is what makes this place special." Amina listened attentively, taking in every detail. She realized that she had spent so much of her life running and hiding that she had never known the simple beauty of community life. She began to feel that perhaps life could be different, safer, kinder, and more hopeful. That evening, Hassan invited Amina to help him in the fields. He showed her how to plant seeds properly, how to water the soil without wasting precious water, and how to remove weeds gently so as not to disturb the young plants. Amina was careful at first, unsure of her movements, but Hassan guided her patiently, his hands steady as he corrected her gently without scolding. "You are doing well," he said with a small smile. "It takes time to learn, but you are strong. You can do anything if you try." Amina's heart lifted at his words. For the first time, someone believed in her abilities. She felt a quiet pride as she worked alongside him, her hands covered in soil, the sun warming her back. She realized that she was capable of more than she had ever imagined. As the days passed, their routine became a comforting rhythm. Mornings were spent tending to the fields, afternoons resting and sharing quiet conversations, and evenings preparing simple meals together. During this time, Amina began to open up more about her past. She spoke of the family she had left behind, the hardships she had endured, and the fear that had driven her to flee. Hassan listened patiently, never interrupting or judging. He only offered quiet reassurance, his presence a steady anchor in her stormy world. "You have endured much," he said one evening as they watched the sun dip below the horizon. "But you are still here. That means you are strong. You survived when many would have given up. That strength is something to be proud of." Amina felt tears prick her eyes. "I don't feel strong," she admitted softly. "I feel small, like I am not worth much." Hassan shook his head firmly. "No," he said. "You are worth more than you know. Your courage is in surviving, in continuing even when life was hard. That is strength. That is value." His words sank deep into her heart. For the first time, she began to believe that she had worth, that she could be more than her past, that she could start anew. The trust she felt in Hassan grew stronger, and she realized that she no longer feared being near him or speaking openly. One day, as they were walking through the village to collect some supplies, Amina noticed a group of children playing in the street. They ran past laughing, and one little boy tripped and fell. Hassan immediately ran to help him, lifting the boy gently and checking that he was not hurt. Amina watched, a small smile spreading across her face. She realized that Hassan's kindness was not limited to her. It extended to everyone around him, in every small action, in every patient gesture. "Why do you always help everyone?" she asked softly as they continued walking. Hassan looked at her and smiled. "Because everyone deserves help when they need it," he said simply. "If you can ease someone's pain, even a little, why wouldn't you?" Amina thought about this for a long time. She had always felt invisible in her past life, like no one cared if she was hurt or happy. Now she saw that kindness could change a life, that it could give hope where there had been none. She wanted to be like that, to carry kindness forward, but she did not yet know how. Weeks later, Hassan decided it was time to teach her more about the practical skills of life. He showed her how to prepare simple meals from the vegetables in his garden, how to mend torn clothes, and even how to care for the small animals they had, like chickens and goats. Each lesson was small but important, and Amina absorbed them eagerly. She realized that life could be manageable if she learned the skills to survive, and that knowledge gave her a sense of power she had never felt before. One afternoon, as they worked together in the field, a sudden rainstorm swept across the village. The sky darkened quickly and heavy drops began to fall, drenching them both. Hassan quickly guided Amina to a small shelter near his home. They huddled together, listening to the rain pounding against the roof. For the first time, Amina felt completely safe. She realized that storms in life were inevitable, but having someone who cared could make even the heaviest storm bearable. As the rain fell, Hassan spoke quietly. "Life is like this storm," he said. "Sometimes it comes suddenly and it feels overwhelming. But if you have shelter, and if you have someone who cares, you can get through it." Amina nodded, her eyes reflecting the dim light of the shelter. She understood now that Hassan was more than a farmer helping a stranger. He was a teacher, a guide, and most importantly, a friend who would never abandon her. Over time, Amina began to help others in small ways. She carried water to elderly neighbors, helped children fetch vegetables, and offered kind words to anyone she met who seemed sad or lonely. Hassan watched silently, pride filling his heart. She was learning the lessons he had hoped she would, lessons not only of survival but of compassion, generosity, and courage. One evening, as they sat together after a long day of work, Amina turned to Hassan and said softly, "I want to do more. I want to help people the way you helped me. I want to make a difference." Hassan smiled warmly. "You already are making a difference," he said. "Every small act of kindness matters. You have come a long way and you will continue to grow. Remember, it is not how much you give, but how much you care that counts." Amina felt a deep sense of gratitude. She realized that the life she had once thought was full of fear and hopelessness could now be filled with purpose. She had been given a second chance, not just to survive, but to live fully, to love, and to help others in need. As part 3 draws to a close, Amina was no longer the frightened young woman who had collapsed on the village road weeks ago. She had grown stronger, wiser, and more confident. The bond she shared with Hassan had deepened, built on trust, patience, and unwavering kindness. She knew that the path ahead would not always be easy, but with the lessons she had learned and the support she had found, she was ready to face the world. In the quiet village, in the simple rhythm of farm life, a remarkable transformation was taking place. A young woman who had known only fear was learning courage. A poor farmer who had given his last coin was seeing the true power of kindness. And together, they were discovering that even the smallest acts of care could change lives forever. As the weeks passed, Amina's confidence grew stronger every day. She was no longer the frightened, trembling girl who had collapsed by the roadside. She had learned how to care for herself and how to help others, thanks to Hassan's patience and kindness. Every morning she woke up with purpose. She helped Hassan in the fields, fetched water from the small well nearby, and sometimes even prepared simple meals. With every task she completed, her sense of independence grew. Hassan noticed the changes in her. He saw the spark of determination in her eyes, the way she moved with confidence, and the small but meaningful gestures she made toward others in the village. He felt proud, not just for her growth, but for the courage she had shown in facing her past. Hassan had always believed that people could change when given care and support, and Amina was living proof of that belief. One afternoon, Hassan decided to take Amina to the larger part of the village, where a small gathering of villagers had come together to discuss an upcoming festival. "I want you to see more of the world around you," he said. "You have learned much, but life is bigger than our little farm. There is beauty and joy everywhere and people who can teach you even more." Amina hesitated at first, unsure of how others might react to her, but Hassan gently took her hand. "Do not worry," he said. "They will see you for who you are, not for your past." As they approached the group of villagers, Amina noticed children laughing, women carrying baskets of fruits, and men discussing their crops. She felt a mixture of excitement and nervousness. Some villagers glanced at her curiously, but when they saw Hassan by her side, they smiled warmly. They knew Hassan as a kind man, someone who always helped those in need, and his presence gave them reason to welcome her as well. The village elder, a kind and gentle woman, approached them. "Hassan," she said, "and this must be the young lady you have been helping." Hassan smiled. "Yes, this is Amina. She has been learning to care for herself and others. I thought it would be good for her to see the village and meet more people." Amina's face turned red with shyness. She bowed slightly, unsure of what to say, but the elder took her hand and smiled warmly. "It is wonderful to meet you," she said. "You are very brave to come here and learn. You will find many friends who can support you." The elder introduced her to several other villagers. Amina was surprised by their kindness. No one asked questions about her past. No one judged her. They treated her with respect and warmth. She began to realize that life could be different from the fear and pain she had known. There were people who cared, people who would support her, and a community where she could belong. Over the next few days, Amina started helping in the village in small ways. She carried water to the children playing by the stream, helped the women gather fruits and vegetables, and assisted in preparing food for the elderly. Hassan watched quietly, proud of the courage she showed. He knew she was learning more than just survival skills. She was learning compassion, patience, and the joy of helping others. One day, as they were returning from the market with a small basket of vegetables, Amina noticed a little boy sitting alone near the road. His clothes were dirty and he looked hungry and sad. She approached him gently. "Are you all right?" she asked softly. The boy shook his head, tears in his eyes. I don't have anything to eat," he whispered. Amina glanced at Hassan, who gave her a small nod of encouragement. Without hesitation, she offered the boy some bread and milk they had bought from the market. The boy's eyes lit up with surprise and gratitude. "Thank you," he said, taking the food eagerly. Amina smiled, feeling a warmth in her heart she had never known before. She realized that helping others could bring as much joy as being helped herself. Hassan placed a gentle hand on her shoulder. "You see," he said, "kindness is not just about receiving, it is about giving too, and you are doing very well." Amina's confidence continued to grow, but with her newfound independence came new challenges. One afternoon, as she and Hassan worked in the field, a group of strangers appeared near the village. They were merchants traveling from a distant town, and their arrival caused a stir among the villagers. They brought goods for trade, but also news of the outside world, stories of hardship, dangers, and people who could not always be trusted. Amina felt a flicker of fear. The strangers looked serious and unkind, and she remembered the days when she had feared strangers because of her past. Hassan noticed her hesitation and placed a reassuring hand on her back. "Do not be afraid," he said. "We must be careful, yes, but fear cannot rule us. You are stronger than you think." Over the next few days, the merchants stayed in the village, and tensions began to rise. Some villagers worried about their presence, unsure of whether they could be trusted. Amina listened to the conversations with growing anxiety. She remembered how it felt to be alone and vulnerable, and a part of her wanted to hide. But Hassan encouraged her to remain calm and thoughtful. One evening, as the sun set, Amina approached Hassan. "Hassan," she said softly, "what if they are dangerous? What if something bad happens?" Hassan looked at her, his eyes calm and steady. "We cannot control everything," he said, "but we can control how we act. We can be kind, we can be brave, and we can help those who need it. That is all we can do. You have grown stronger, Amina. You can face this." Amina nodded, taking his words to heart. She realized that courage was not the absence of fear, but the choice to act despite it. She felt a new determination to protect herself, Hassan, and the villagers if needed. As the days passed, the villagers learned that the merchants were honest and meant no harm. But the experience had taught Amina an important lesson. The world was not always safe, and strength came from wisdom, patience, and courage. She shared her feelings with Hassan one evening as they sat by the small fire in his home. "Hassan," she said, "I understand now. Life is not always simple or safe, but with care and thought we can handle it, and we must help others whenever we can." Hassan smiled warmly. "Exactly," he said. "You have learned well. You have grown into someone who can face challenges and still be kind. That is a rare gift." Amina felt a quiet pride. She realized that her journey was far from over, but she was no longer the scared girl who had collapsed on the road. She had learned strength, courage, and the importance of helping others. She had also learned the value of patience, trust, and friendship. Hassan had not only given her food and safety, but had also taught her lessons that no coin could buy. One morning, as they prepared for another day in the fields, Amina turned to Hassan. "I want to do more," she said. "I want to help the village and the people who might be alone or afraid just like I was. I want to make life better for them." Hassan looked at her, his heart full of pride. "Then you will," he said, "and you will do it with kindness and courage. That is all anyone can ask for." Over the following weeks, Amina began taking small steps to help the villagers independently. She organized little tasks, such as delivering water to elderly neighbors, helping children with chores, and offering support to those who were sick or struggling. Hassan guided her when needed but allowed her to act on her own. He knew that true growth came when someone could take initiative and show compassion without being prompted. As Part 4 draws to a close, Amina had become a young woman of quiet strength and courage. She was no longer just a receiver of kindness. She was now a giver, learning to face the world with hope and determination. Hassan continued to support her, but he also stepped back enough to allow her independence to grow. Together, they had built a bond stronger than fear, stronger than loneliness, and capable of facing any challenge that life might bring. In the heart of the small village, a young woman had transformed through patience, love, and guidance. She had discovered courage she never knew she had, and the world around her began to open with opportunities, friendships, and hope. Hassan, the humble farmer, had given more than food and shelter. He had given her the tools to build a life of dignity, purpose, and kindness. As the days turned into months, Amina had grown stronger, wiser, and more confident than she had ever imagined. No longer the frightened girl who had collapsed by the roadside, she now moved through the village with purpose. She greeted the villagers warmly, helped with daily chores, and offered small acts of kindness wherever she could. Children ran to her for guidance and comfort, and the elderly smiled whenever she came near. She had become a quiet force of hope in the village, and Hassan watched with pride, knowing that the kindness he had shown her had blossomed into something far greater than he had imagined. Hassan continued his simple life, tending to his fields and caring for his small home, but he felt a sense of fulfillment he had never known. The joy of seeing Amina grow into her own strength was greater than any coin he could have spent or earned. Each day, he watched her interact with others, giving freely without expectation, and he understood that true wealth lay not in money, but in the impact one could have on another person's life. One afternoon, as they walked through the village to check on some newly planted crops, Amina noticed a young mother struggling with her child. The woman had fallen ill and could not carry the heavy bundle of firewood she needed for the evening. Without hesitation, Amina stepped forward. She offered to carry the wood and guided the woman safely back to her home. The woman thanked her profusely, tears in her eyes. Hassan smiled from a short distance away. "See what I mean," he said gently. "Every act of kindness, no matter how small, matters. You are making a difference in ways you cannot yet see." Amina nodded, a quiet warmth spreading through her chest. She realized that helping others could create ripples, reaching far beyond what she could immediately perceive. Each gesture of care and courage built a stronger community, and she was proud to be a part of it. One evening, as the sun set behind the distant hills, casting golden light across the village, Hassan and Amina sat together outside his home. The fields glowed in the soft light, and the gentle rustling of the trees filled the quiet air. Amina turned to Hassan, her eyes thoughtful. "Hassan," she said softly, "I want to do more for the village. I want to help people who are alone, hungry, or afraid, just like I was. I want to make life better for them, even in small ways." Hassan placed a hand on her shoulder, feeling a deep sense of pride. "Then you will," he said. "You have already done so much. Every person you help carries that kindness forward. One small act can create a chain that spreads far beyond us. You are learning the greatest lesson of all, that love and care are the most valuable things in the world." Inspired by his words, Amina began organizing small efforts to support the villagers. She started helping children learn simple reading and writing skills, teaching them patience and focus. She offered guidance to women in the village, showing them how to make simple meals and care for their families more efficiently. And she began visiting the elderly and the sick, offering comfort and company. Each small effort was met with gratitude, and the villagers slowly began to see her not as a newcomer, but as someone who had become an integral part of their lives. The transformation in Amina's life also inspired other young people in the village. They observed her courage, compassion, and willingness to help, and many began assisting her in small ways. Together, they created a quiet network of support and care, a reflection of the lessons Hassan had instilled in her. It was a ripple effect, one act of kindness leading to another, until the entire village began to feel stronger, closer, and more united. One day, as Hassan and Amina returned from helping a family repair their small home, they were met with the village elder and a group of villagers waiting near the path. The elder smiled warmly at them. "Hassan, Amina," she said, "we want to thank you both. Your efforts have changed the village in ways words cannot describe. We are stronger, kinder, and more connected because of the care you have shown." Amina felt tears welling in her eyes. She glanced at Hassan, who simply smiled quietly. He had never sought recognition, but he understood the deep satisfaction of knowing that a life had been changed for the better. "We only did what we could," Hassan said humbly. "Kindness does not need reward. It is its own reward." Amina spoke next, her voice soft but full of conviction. "I was once lost, alone and afraid," she said. "But because of Hassan's kindness, I learned courage, patience, and hope. I want to continue sharing that with others. No one should feel as alone as I once did." The villagers listened quietly, moved by her words. They had seen her growth, her courage, and her compassion. She was no longer a frightened stranger. She was now a symbol of hope and kindness. In the days that followed, Amina took on more responsibilities. She helped organize food and supplies for families in need, guided children in their studies, and taught others how to grow and care for small gardens, ensuring they had enough to eat. Hassan continued to support her quietly, providing guidance when needed, but allowing her independence to flourish. He saw that the young woman he had helped was now ready to stand on her own, ready to face challenges and help others in turn. One afternoon, as the sun cast long shadows across the fields, Amina and Hassan sat together quietly. Amina's face was filled with a calm confidence that had once been unimaginable. She turned to him and said softly, "Hassan, I will never forget what you did for me. You gave me more than food or shelter. You gave me hope, courage, and the tools to live a meaningful life. I promise to continue what you started, to help others whenever I can." Hassan felt a deep sense of fulfillment. He had not expected recognition or reward, but hearing her words brought a warmth to his heart. "That is all I could ever hope for," he said. "Remember, Amina, the greatest gift is to care. Never stop giving, never stop being kind, and you will change the world in ways you cannot yet imagine." As the months turned into years, Amina became a quiet leader in the village. She continued to support those in need, teach the young, and provide comfort to the elderly. Her kindness inspired others to act with compassion, creating a network of support that strengthened the entire community. She remembered the day she had collapsed on the road, the day she had thought she was completely alone, and she realized how far she had come. Hassan continued his simple life, but now he did so with a quiet pride. He had seen firsthand the power of a small act of kindness, how one coin, given without expectation, could spark a chain of hope, courage, and compassion. He understood that wealth was not measured in coins, but in the lives one touched and the love one shared. One morning, as Amina helped a young girl carry water from the well, she turned to Hassan with a thoughtful expression. "I think I understand now," she said. "The world is not always fair. People face hardships every day, but even the smallest act of kindness can create hope. It can change lives. You taught me that, and now I want to share it with everyone I can." Hassan smiled. "You have learned well," he said. "And you have done more than I ever could have imagined. You are strong, brave, and kind. You have become everything I hoped you could be, and more." The sun set that evening, casting a golden glow across the village. Children played, women carried baskets of fruit and vegetables, and men returned from the fields with smiles on their faces. Amina and Hassan walked together, quietly observing the life of the village they had nurtured with patience and care. In that moment, both of them understood something profound, that even the smallest act of kindness, given without expectation, could grow into something extraordinary. A single coin, given to a frightened young girl on the roadside, had not only saved her life, but it also sparked a lifetime of hope, courage, and compassion. And so, in the heart of the small village, the story of a poor farmer and a young woman who had once been lost and alone became a quiet legend, a reminder that true wealth is not in gold or possessions, but in the love and kindness one shares with others. Hassan had given his last coin, but what he received in return was far greater. The knowledge that one act of selflessness could ripple across lives, inspiring hope and change for years to come. Amina, once a frightened girl, now stood tall and confident. She helped the villagers, cared for the children, and shared the lessons of kindness she had learned. And Hassan, the humble farmer, continued to live simply, quietly content, knowing that the world was a better place because of a single act of generosity, and because he had chosen to care when it mattered most. In the end, their story became more than just about survival. It became about the power of the human heart, the importance of courage and compassion, and the truth that even in the poorest of lives, love and kindness can create a legacy that lasts